What's going on, everybody? We have an incredible legend that's going to join us today, a guy named Eric Spofford, an incredible human with an incredible story, a guy who had literally gone from homeless, drug addict, to a gentleman who I believe will be on the Forbes 400 list one day and is making a huge impact, not only professionally with his centers that he's going to tell us about, but also personally with the way that he carries himself, lives his life, and delivers his message. This man has $100 million net worth and is going to join us today to crush limiting beliefs and help you live your greatest life. We're glad you're here. We can't wait to get started.
Travis.
My man.
You want to see something funny?
Yeah, always.
This is no bullshit. This is how real this is. I'm getting on to talk to you so we can do the podcast for the inmates.
You're joking.
Marky from the New Hampshire Department of Corrections. Marky, how long you been in? Say what's up.
Years right now, but really for like the past 20.
God, man.
Yeah, he's been.
I was only out for a couple of days.
Yeah, this is my boy Marky. I've known him for a lifetime, and he can't stop fucking doing drugs and keep his ass out of prison. He's hitting the streets in September. Latest though, he maxes out, so we're gonna try and get him out of New Hampshire and down to Florida, get him to like a nice sober house or something down here close to me, and get him away from all that bullshit and all the people up there. You know what
That's
I mean?
it, brother. People, places, and things, Marky. You know the game. You change your people. You change your people. You remove those places, and you focus on better things, brother.
He's been hearing it from me for the last 15 minutes.
He's like, enough of that. I hear that from Eric every other day.
The sobriety community down there, check it out. Somebody was telling me there's a big sobriety hub down there in Florida or something like that. One of your other buddies, Eric, said something like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of recovery down here, man. There's a lot of us for sure.
He tops out in September.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, September 11th, I maxed out literally the day after my birthday.
Wow. What do you have access to there, Mark? Do you guys have JPay or Securus or Adovo, GTL?
We have GTL.
Okay. That'll be fantastic. You'll be able to hear Eric and I here shortly.
Oh, go on the GTL.
That's the thing. I don't know how to get on there. I don't know. I get the tablet at 3:30. We only get it for an hour a day.
Oh gosh.
So, is it like a live thing?
No, it'll be uploaded in perpetuity. It'll be in the library forever. That's ridiculous that they give you the tablet for an hour a day. That's like,
they probably do that. It's probably on the books or something.
Like Marky can't stay out of prison.
Yeah.
When he's in prison, he can't stay his ass out of shoe either.
there's no Wi-Fi in AdSeg, Mark.
Yeah, I've been in that. I've been in AdSeg basically for the past 4 years.
Yeah, jeez Louise.
I'll be right back here.
Golly, Mark, what's the biggest thing that keeps you going back?
To prison?
Yeah.
Or AdSeg? Honestly, whether I'm sober or if I'm using, it's always the lifestyle. If I'm sober, I'm still on the street trying to hustle. So it's always drugs. For me, always it's drugs, honestly.
And so what's your trigger?
What's that?
What's your trigger?
My trigger?
Yeah.
Honestly, for me, usually I'll be out hustling and shit, and then it's my mental health. So I'll usually, if I'm with a girl or something like that, I get depressed or whatever, and usually my depression, I relapse. For me.
Got it.
I lose control. Getting involved with somebody too soon, you know. I haven't made it out of prison long enough to do the 1 year thing. I haven't been out for a year straight since I was 20.
Golly, bro, that breaks my heart. I know you got the greatest mentor on the line there with Eric, but I'll tell you what, man, when you say, and I don't know you very well, I just get to speak to millions of these guys around the world every day. And so, you know, when you talk about depression, when you use those types of buzzwords, what I would challenge you to do is to figure out what is it in your life that your reality is not mirroring what's in your head, because that's the only reason that you become depressed. When you say, oh, so-and-so left me, or I don't have a job of X dollars, whatever is in your head doesn't mirror what's in your life. And so we don't know how to deal with that or communicate that. So we use these bullshit buzzwords like depression. If you can look at yourself in the mirror and you can say, this is my identity, and that depression only comes in when I don't communicate with myself properly, bro, you change that paradigm. There's no such thing as depression any longer. There's just a bunch of learning lessons.
Yep. These are the things I'm working on now. I like, in here, they don't have much available to us, really. So the best I do right now is like, one of Eric's other friends had me order this book, My Ego is My Enemy. I got that. I got a lot of self-help books like The Secret or, you know, The 7 Habits of Highly Effectual People and stuff like that. But I'm trying to do a lot of things just to change my thought process. So my instant reaction didn't always bring me right back to anger, depression, and drugs. You know, I'm trying to put a block up in between that, you know, like something just keep me out of whatever I keep digging into to get in here, you know, somewhere I can, instead of going out to the street, I'll go to a meeting or go to the gym or something that just keeps my mind out of this shit. It's been so many years of doing it, like instant reaction.
Just from observation too, it's like there's a design for living, there's a plan.
Yeah.
Right, with suggestions and you know, Marky, like so many of our friends in my home state of New Hampshire, see the plan and the design for living, and then, you know, create their own recipe over and over and over again. And it's like, you know, and I'll say it in front of him because he hears it from me every fucking week for 15 years. It's like, you know, if you just take the suggestions and do what's laid out in front of you, people, places, things, do the internal work to change the operating system, control what you can control on the outside, make the changes that are available to you, then you're going to get a different result. But when you come out and make the same decisions, thinking that it's going to work out differently, or with a strong case of that, I don't know if we can swear on this thing, I'm sure we can, but of the fuck-its, as we call it, like you're just going to end up in the same spot, full of regret, sitting in a concrete box and, you know, waiting to try and do it over again. It's like,
It's not a life. It's not a life, man.
life. But you know what's funny though, where we're from, New Hampshire was like the heroin capital and the fentanyl capital of the country.
Yeah.
Number one in statistically in overdose death nationally year over year. And so God, the universe, whatever you believe in, works in mysterious ways. Like I look at Marky and I'm like, man, if prison kept him alive, then maybe it's not such a bad thing. Because me and this kid, most of our friends are dead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's crazy. Marky, I gotta we love having you a co-host of the show here, but we got stuff to do. So call me when you're out tomorrow, okay?
All right, buddy. I love you, kid. You guys have a good day.
Love you
Take
too.
care.
Bye.
Thanks, Mark.
All right.
Crazy. Sorry about that.
Why, man? That was incredible.
Crazy. Let me put this on silent.
I love talking to those guys, man.
It's the best, you know. I love hearing from them. It's gotta stay grounded with it, you know.
Yeah, it is. And it's interesting, right? Like some of the stuff that you say is just mind blowing to me. And I love everything about it because so many of these guys, you know, when I talk to the guys inside, and I'm sure you do the same thing, you know, the showgrams for me, the motivational quotes, like that never got me out of bed. You know, when I realized, you know, that I had like 78 birthdays on this planet and then I had burned X amount.
Yeah,
bro, I don't need a coffee in the morning. I fly out of bed at 5:30 lit.
100%.
And so you talk about smashing, like when you said that, when you said, I want to smash limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
What's that about? Where does that come from with you?
I mean, it's a compilation of life experience and the journey thus far. You know what I mean? I grew up messed up in a messed up neighborhood with a bunch of messed up people. And, you know, my parents didn't get along well. So it was a very loud environment when I was a kid. And then they split up and I was caught in the crossfire of that. And I got involved in drugs and alcohol real young. And I got caught selling weed for the first time. I was 10 years old in 5th grade.
Wow.
Getting drunk, getting stoned. You know, 1999 for me, it's Oxycontin in the Northeast, the opiate epidemic, right? 15 years old, it's IV heroin addiction, you know, running the streets, dropped out of high school at 15, hit it hard. And by the time I was 16, 17 years old, I was a stone cold junkie on the streets. And, you know, a couple months before, and that whole journey was crazy, but a couple months before my 22nd birthday, you know, which was December 7th of 2006, my life was a mess, my brother. It's, you know, I didn't have a friend left in the world. I had warrants. I just got out of jail. I had a half a trash bag, couple sets of clothes that I carried around in a half a trash bag, you know, full of gear that I had, and essentially homeless. And I'd been addicted to heroin for coming up on 7 years at that time, and everything else that came with it, you know, the other drugs, the life, all of it, violence, and just crazy shit. And I stepped out of all of that, and one foot in front of the other, you know, I changed my life. And through all of that, you know, I've accomplished some, you know, what I think are pretty crazy things. I've gotten to places that guys like me, you know, don't typically get to. I mean, just the fact that I was a stone cold heroin addict and I've been consistently sober and in a state of recovery for 15 years is one that statistically is not popular. But then, you know, by deploying, doing the right thing and making the appropriate changes, I mean, they asked me to come testify to the United States Senate in
Yeah.
2015 on the opioid epidemic and help craft, you know, federal legislation on the issue. And, you know, I built a business that was the largest provider of addiction treatment services in the Northeast, ran that for 13 years. I sold it about 4 months ago. And just all these things that, like, my man, like at no point, if you had asked me the times that I spent in a jail cell, the times that I spent in a detox facility, or when I was like, you know, waiting for the dope man, 5 more minutes, Poppy, on the side of the street, you know, sitting there just wanting to fucking kill myself. Couldn't imagine doing this for another day, and couldn't imagine life without doing it. And that my life would ever be to where it has gotten, not 1% of where it has gotten. I'd be like, it's totally impossible. And so that was, and I've heard you talk about this a little bit, the subject of the larger prison, which is the constraint of my mind and my belief system.
Yes, sir.
Right?
Yeah.
Guys like me don't make it there. Guys like me don't do things like that. Guys like me don't get invited to those tables with those nice people. You know, all the bullshit that, you know, I myself, society, you know, whatever applied to myself. And the fact that I've broken through all of it, you know, I became a political activist for people like us, right? I showed up to, you know, fundraisers and lobbying events and speaking engagements covered in tattoos. I'm not wearing a suit when I come because we're keeping it real, you know? And so just all of that stuff that I myself have smashed through all those things. So I know it's possible. You cannot convince me otherwise. And so I wish I could just give, like, to guys like Marky and the people that I've lost and the people that are still in the struggle and, you know, and all of that, if I could just give a piece of that to them, like, brother, if I can do it, I promise you there's nothing special about me. I'm just the guy that did it.
Yeah.
You know?
But I also think, and I know you're big on this, is I think you took extreme ownership.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to, and, you know, so much of being stuck in the cycle of sickness is a victim mentality.
Yes.
But the thing is as long as it's someone else's fault and you're a victim, you're not empowered to make the changes.
Can't fix it.
Yeah, the second I own it, it's on me. It's 100% on me. It's not my parents. It's not my neighborhood. It's not even it's none of that. It's all on me. I'm the variable.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that 100%, you know, extreme ownership. And now, well, guess what? If you're the problem, you get to fix it. You get to fix you. You can't fix them. You can only fix you.
Yeah.
Right?
No, you're absolutely right, brother. We have a saying here. It says biography is not your destiny. And it's exactly what you talk about, whether it's your messed up parents, whether it's the messed up neighborhood, whether it's the time you spent in a concrete box, none of that defines how far that you get to go.
Yeah, that's right.
It's incredible, man. So I'm going to rewind a little bit for anybody who's been inside for a little bit or a lot of bit. Eric is joining us today. Eric has basically taken himself from homeless, drug addict, and an individual who had a lifestyle that wasn't serving him, built himself up into one of the largest addiction recovery centers on the planet, on the East Coast, and has built himself a fortune. And not only a professional fortune, but as you can tell from his language, and the way that he leads his lifestyle, a personal fortune. Guys like us, and I know you believe this, Eric, the money is a good thing. Money is a great thing. Money allows us access and money allows us to be able to do things, but money doesn't always equate to happiness to guys like you and I, fulfillment. And so one of the things that I want to unpack for these guys that are listening, these girls that are listening, is they often have this version of success that you and I see on Instagram. But talk to them for a minute about what is the real version of success? How do you qualify that? How do you look at that every day in your life? Because you've made it. For anybody who hasn't Googled this, man, I mean, you're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, right? All of the things in life. And I said it on the pre-show, and I believe it now, and I wasn't going to tell you, but I'm going to say it out loud. I'm looking at a guy that I think will one day be in the Forbes 400 list. You're not a guy that stops. You're not a guy that relaxes. And so when you're looking at that from a successful lens, if I'm sitting in a concrete box, if I'm talking to Marky, if I'm looking, I got a gal right now that comes to my mind. She just did 15 years, gets out in 96 days. How do they get successful?
It's an inside job first.
Yeah.
It's always an inside job first. When you look at, if you reverse engineer my path, right?
Yes.
I never, and I mean this is how it happened. I never went out to become wealthy financially. Along the way, I wanted to. Along the way, it was a goal of mine. I wanted all of it. I still want all of it, but I want all of it on a multi-dimensional level. The very first thing that I did was I was a heroin addict, a liar, a cheat, and a thief, and honestly, just a piece of shit. And that's how I felt about myself. That's how the common, based on my actions and how I showed up to the world, that's how a lot of people that knew me would have categorized me. And I wanted to be different. And I want to be, I want to show up differently. I want to feel differently. And so I set out on an internal path of transformation to build internal assets. For me, originally, that path was the 12 steps through Alcoholics Anonymous. I went to AA meetings every day for the first few years. And in that provided me, and I'm not here, saying everyone needs to go to AA. Everyone, I recommend it. I liked it, changed my life, but everyone can find their own path. But what happened for me there was I was surrounded with a bunch of people that were all walking the same road as me. They all wanted better. And they were all willing to tell me the truth despite how it made me feel. They would hold me accountable. And, and I just started down this process where I started doing this internal work and with other men and getting honest and looking at where am I selfish? What am I fearful of? Where are the dishonesties in my life? And like really just having this internal transformation. The thing for me that really set me on fire was first, the pre-qualifying work was I analyzed through that step work, what makes me tick, right? All those things. But then what really transformed my life was this thing that they do in the 12 steps, and I would recommend it for anyone, alcoholic, drug addicted or not, was I made a list. It was the 8th and 9th step, and I made a list of everyone I had ever harmed, ever. Of varying descriptions. I stole your lunch money. I fucking was violent to you, whatever. And then I except where it would harm others or implicate others, I went out and made what they call direct amends to each and every person. And I sat across the table from men and women that I hurt. I walked into stores that I stole from. Everything I'd ever done wrong in the world. The list for me was more than 300. In that was I cheated on you. In that was, I robbed you. In that was, I was violent. In that was, I broke your trust. I hurt your feelings. All these things, these wrongs that I'd done. I went to people and I didn't say I was sorry, but it's based off of my past life. I told you I was sorry. All that really meant was I'm about to do this shit again to you. Mm-hmm. And so what I said was, I was wrong for what I did. And what can I do to make that right? And that process really changed. And then when they told me what to do, I went and did it. And that process changed me from the inside out. And in that, so first it was an internal changing process. And then it became about, in that process, it illuminated a passion for me. I just wanted to help people. Yeah. I was like 22, 23 years old at the time now. And all my friends are addicted to drugs. My whole world looks like it's addicted to drugs. And here I am, my life, I'm catching fire. Like, man, I'm so like free, right? Like I'm like setting out, like going to chase people down because I stole $50 from them back in the day. And they're like, what the fuck? Like, they're like,
Right.
like, no, listen. And like, and I'm just I'm just on fire, like spiritually and mentally and emotionally. I'm just like changing by the day. And I just wanted to show other people that passion. And so I really, it started for me by changing on the inside and then finding a purpose, a passion for me. For me, it was helping other people that were like me. You know, I'm sure there are a lot of purposes for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Nobody's born and put on this world by mistake, right? We were all put here for a reason and a plan. And you know, we just get lost along the way for a lot of us, like I did. And then after that came the success. And after that came, you know, well, I quotation, the success, came the money.
Yep.
And the reality is that if you had given me money early on, it would have fucking destroyed me. The complexities of wealth, the complexities of financial and business success, man, you have to build a framework that can withstand that. And because it's not easy. I sold that business 4 months ago, and the amount of people that have stepped up with jealousy and envy and like just the amount of problems, the more money, and Biggie Small said it in 1994, more money, more problems. And you know, I'm here to tell you, having surpassed a 9-figure, you know, net worth, that's absolutely true. The amount of pressure it'll put on your relationship. You want to see your entire world change, go make $100 million. I guarantee you every relationship that you have today will be different on the other side of that, one way or the other.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's not all about that. And happiness is, you know, you think, and let's talk about that only because these guys are sitting in prison and can't imagine what I'm talking about.
Nope.
I'm right now sitting on a 9,000 square foot house in the Miami Biscayne Bay. I'm looking out my window already. If I turn the computer around, you're going to see boats and water and all this shit. I have a mid-sized jet parked on the tarmac up at Opelika. I got a Rolls-Royce Cullinan in the garage. I got a 92-foot 5-estate room tri-deck yacht parked around the corner in front of Kiki in the river. I got another house up north of Boston. And you know, I got real estate, I got business, I got, you know, jewelry.
And you got the equivalent of a Cullinan on your wrist for anybody who's watching this as well.
Yeah, that's the RM, you know, 35.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
You know, and so yeah, we have all that stupid shit.
Yep.
My happiness, it's fun. It is, you know, it's access, it's all of those things. But if I'm not doing the work to keep myself right internally, man, I will be the richest, fucking most miserable son of a bitch you'll ever meet.
Bro, and we know those guys, don't we? You know those guys. Now that you're in the 9-figure club, you're hanging out with 10-figure clubs.
Yeah.
You know those guys, and I know them as well. And I say this all the time. I go behind prison bars every week, and I meet guys that have a more fulfilled life than some of these cats that are on the outside.
You look at how I got here, you know, there's a guy named Don Pritz, who is a pioneer in the recovery community. And he found recovery from a couple of guys doing life in a Colorado state prison in the 1960s.
Wow. And
this guy, at one time I had a whole recovery center named after him that I gave away for free and for fun to people because I loved him so much. And I have an interesting fact about him. He got sober in 1962 in a Colorado prison. He left there and he dedicated his entire life into carrying the message of the 12 steps and helping men and women recover from addiction and alcoholism, and through AA and other means. And he directly impacted my life through his legacy and his teachings. I earnestly tell you that if he had not done the work that he did, that I probably would never have survived and got the message of recovery that I got. You want to know what's funny about this man?
wow.
He died in 2005. I didn't get sober until 2006. I never even had the opportunity to meet him.
Holy cow.
The legacy he left on this planet. And so, you know, he also never made more than 50 grand a year. He's the happiest guy,
Yeah.
you know, and his cup was just full all the time, you know?
Does that weigh heavily on you as you make your choices in terms of legacy, in terms of your legacy?
I talk about a couple things in terms of legacy, right? One is that I'm living for the funeral, right? That I want the biggest funeral that I can possibly, I could pack it out. And people are like, what do you mean? I'm like, I do stuff the way that I do it. I try to help others and do things for people, but I do it without a camera in my face and, Instagram and all that stuff. And, it's probably widely known that helping people has been a large part of my journey, has been and remains a large part of my journey. But I want my two boys, I got two sons, Gavin and Mace, and I want them to come to my funeral. And I want a line of people standing in front of a microphone, 1,000 people long, telling a story about me that nobody ever heard. One time your dad did for me, right? They're not going to put my fucking Richard Milley and my Rolls Royce up there at the front of the goddamn room. And, on the issue of chasing a bag, right?
Yes.
And getting money, like, it really sometimes, and I know people are gonna be like, yeah, right. It some days when you have it, you wake up and you look around and you're like, man, sometimes this shit's just not worth the trouble. Like you take the red pill or the green pill, and there's some days where I'm like, man, if I could go back to my roots where I woke up early in the morning, I still smoked a Marlboro Red, had a Dunkin' Donuts coffee, went out to the construction site doing logging. The smell of two-stroke chainsaws at 6:45 in the morning, warming them up, sharpening them with the boys. Wearing some Chippewa boots, and you know what I mean? Like
You're painting a picture.
I think about it, and I'm like, man, that doesn't sound bad. I spent my talking to lawyers and accountants, to pay them. It's like, and I look back in the early days of my sobriety, man, I walked to AA meetings for the first year. I didn't have a driver's license.
Wow.
I trooped and every day back and forth. And then, I got a driver's license. I had a $400, $500 car. I think it was a Volvo, 1988 Volvo. And, thing was breaking down all the time. I was constantly fixing it. And I lived in this little studio apartment in the middle of the hood. And, I did, it just work construction and just life was simple. And so for anyone getting out of prison, man,
yeah,
like I promise you, even if you get to where I get to or where I've gotten to, you're going to look back at those days in the halfway house with the boys or the girls, getting the job, figuring it out, that first car, all that stuff, man. It's on, you might not feel it, but those are going to be some of the best days of your life.
Bro, it's so true. It's so true. You say that. It's so interesting. I tell these guys, some of these guys, they'll have a transition house and, they've been in for so long and the transition house gives them the ability to work 6 hours a day, 6 days a week, 12 hours a day. And so when they get out, quote unquote, they have this 2 years at this house and they just start stacking paper. They freak out. 12 hours, 12 hours, 12 hours. And I go there and I visit them and I'm like, look, man, I respect the hustle. I understand that you're stacking paper. I wouldn't want to live here either. But what type of dialogue are you having with yourself those other 12 hours? What type of dialogue? Because as you say, you have to be the man who's deserving of the bag.
That's it.
Right?
I mean, you need to be putting as much work into yourself because there's the staying power too, right? Like for a long time, I'm a drug addict through and through. Like, I'm, no amount of money that's going to change me internally that changes that for me, right? I need to keep myself on balance because I've seen people smarter and richer than me relapse.
Yes.
And fall off and fall back into the life and reoffend and use drugs again. And you know what I mean? Like I'm not beyond that. And so nobody's beyond that, right? If you come from there. And so you got to consistently be putting the work into yourself and chasing that, 12 hours a day, like, bro, work 8, go to an AA meeting, go to therapy, go to group counseling, go to the gym, get your fitness right, get your mind right, find what it is for you. I've seen so many people do it for so many paths. Yeah. I've talked a lot about AA just because that's my experience. I've seen people do it There we go.
We're
So I-
back.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
No. It's okay. It's okay. We were talking, I lost you when we were talking about how you said, I only talk about AA because that's my path and that's what's worked for
Yeah.
me.
You have to find a path. You have to find, whatever your thing is. I've seen guys do it through the church. I've seen them do Buddhism. I've seen guys change their life through a yoga practice. I've seen it, there's so many different things, but you need something. And I think the one message is like, I don't really have an opinion on what that is for you, friend, but like, you're not going to do this alone.
Yeah.
Like, I promise you, you're not going to do this alone. And so, I think there's one thing that must happen that we don't talk about enough. And I think a lot of guys die in and never experience this, which is surrender.
Mm.
We are in, like, you remember when we were kids and we got those Chinese finger trap things?
Yep.
And like, the harder you fought to get out of it, the worse it got you.
Yeah.
That's a lot of what this life is. It's like the harder you assert yourself to get out of it, like your friend there who's working 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, he's fighting to get out of it. And like, man, I don't like the sounds of that. That makes me very worried for you that you're going to fall flat on your face.
Same.
And so, it's the surrender of like, you know what? Okay, God, universe, whatever it is, you gave me a life. I've done the best that I could do with it, and I made a fucking mess of it.
Mm-hmm.
My best thinking, my best operating got me here. This is great. And so having the willingness to surrender, and maybe you don't know everything.
Yeah.
And maybe there's more out there for you than you're aware of. And maybe there's a teacher that you need to listen to. Maybe there's suggestions that you need to do. Maybe you haven't tried everything yet. What are the things that you haven't been willing to try? And so it's just that surrender process but it's hard because most of us that end up incarcerated and on the street and live these lives, we're fighters.
Mm.
We want to fight our way through, and we think that we can beat this. And it's like, this is the paradox that so many people get lost in, which is you must give up and surrender to something before you can get out.
Yeah. I love that. Yeah, that's a great piece of advice for everybody. So thank you for sharing that. The surrender. I haven't heard that because I think oftentimes, especially in our society, I grew up in Framingham, Mass. We both grew up kind of in an interesting time, in an interesting era, interesting streets. And so when you talk about a word like surrender, it brings up feelings of perhaps inadequacy or ego because I've got this bravado about me, right?
But that's the fight.
Yes.
That's right. And that's the thing that keeps you there, though.
You got it, man.
You look at my friend Marky, we were talking to, he gets out and he thinks he's going to punch his way to the other side of it. And I'm like, brother, like, it's just not that way. You must give up. You must accept this. You must accept the help. You must surrender.
Yeah.
And, and you look at like what my personal version of that looked like. I had to give up the friends. I had to give up the money, just all the stuff I had to give up. And put
look what you gave up for what you got, right?
But that's an issue of faith.
Yes.
It took a long time.
Yes.
It took a long time, right? I let God use me in remarkable ways, and it worked out. You know what's so funny? We talk about, for me, I'm a God guy. Like, God stepped in my life, and it just is.
Yep.
And I talk to so many guys, and I talk to them like, man, you have no idea what God's going to do with your life.
Yeah.
And it's almost like they get like possessive over their life. It's like, well, I don't want to give this thing to God. And I'm like, well, look what you fucking did with it. Like, you know what I mean? Like, how bad could it be? And and so I don't know, we give it up and hand it over and just have that process of surrender, that submission, which is so hard for us. I still go through it.
Yeah.
I still want to take my life back. I still want to, know what I mean? And
yes, I do.
That's a lifelong thing for me.
Yeah.
And having the humility to understand that I still battle these demons. 15 years in, a life that I've never most people walking the planet could never imagine, let alone a guy that comes from where I come from.
Mm-hmm.
And I still struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I still, have these demons, and I still need to do the work. Like I
Daily,
didn't,
right?
I didn't beat the game. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like I'm just I'm a work in progress, brother.
Yeah.
And so
I love that. One thing that I want to end on here is so many of these guys inside, I focus on two F words for them, the word fine and the word failure. I think so often we run around telling everybody we're fine, we're fine, we're fine. And if we knew, as you spoke about, and I believe heavily, if we believed that God was really in our life and gave us a purpose, we'd live our lives better than fine.
yeah.
And then secondly, what I'd love for you to frame for these guys is failure. We're right. You love to talk about failure. You love to dive into it. You love to embrace it. So many cats are afraid to fail. And if you're sitting a 6x9 and you think you haven't failed to get there, right? Like I want you to really reframe failure for people.
Yeah. First, I'd love to respond to fine, right? Each and every one of you, each and every one of us are meant for greatness.
Mm.
There's no two ways about that. You're absolutely meant for greatness. There's an author I love. His name's Emmett Fox. Have you ever heard of him?
I have.
Emmett Fox has a writing called The Heart's Desire, right? And he talks about that our real purpose is quiet and it's whispered. And the world is very loud, but God whispers. And so, inside of every man, woman, and child, there's a whisper of what your purpose here is. And oftentimes it gets drowned out by trauma, abuse, drugs, alcohol, street, all this stuff. But it's like, man, if you're walking around the world fine, you have settled.
Yeah.
You're meant for greatness. And the ones, that align themselves with that thing and go back to surrender and sacrifice to get there will catch traction for greatness, right? On failure, I'm built on a mountain of failure, right?
Yes.
If you're looking at my success, it's the tip of the iceberg popping out of what you can't see underneath the water is this big thing of failure, right? And most people are afraid to fail because they're afraid of what people think of them. They're afraid of judgment of other people. And man, like you're just going to shut that stuff out, right? I failed over and over and over again. And for me, it's optimism, right? I'll wake up, I'll fail 10 times by the time I go to bed tonight. Shit's not going to work out for me. I guarantee it. It's early in the day. We got some more failing to do today. It's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I've already had a couple of my morning meetings this morning where I'm like, oh, guys, good Lord, And, if you're not failing, you're not trying.
Yeah.
And so many people are paralyzed by the fear of failure that they don't try and they don't give up.
Yeah.
And they give up rather. And, failure, there's nothing wrong with that. The failure, you cannot win without experiencing huge amounts of failure, which means you need to take on risk.
Yeah.
It means that, when you get out and you hit parole, you hit the streets, like you got to take on risk and do brazen things that you might fail at, you might be embarrassed by. And the truth is that because this thing is so hard that most of the people have a very difficult time staying out of prison and staying out of the life. Look at the recidivism rates, right?
Through the roof.
Through the roof. You have to be the one that sticks out. You have to be the one that walks the path less traveled. And what that means for so many people, and what it meant for me, was that you might be ridiculed by people that right now you consider your people.
Mm-hmm.
Your convict friends, your whatever, like, oh, Susie or Joey, they're going to church now, or they're going to the AA meetings. I got made fun of.
Yeah.
I got made fun of at 21, 22, 23 years old for being sober. And all those people that made fun of me, I've either helped get clean, write them in prison, or been in their fucking funeral. You have to walk the path less traveled. And so you have to be willing to take that burden on and just find the winners in life, man. Find the people that are doing good things and stick to them like glue. Ask for help. I love that word. I love the word and the verb ask, right? It's so hard. It's so hard. Richie, will you help me?
Yeah.
Damn, it's hard, you know?
It's
And,
uncomfortable.
I was doing a commitment at the jail, and they said, I said, what's one of the hardest things to say to somebody? And they were like, I love you. And I was like, give me a half a dozen drinks. I love everybody in the room. I'll tell this whole damn print jail. Like, I don't care. Give me some heroin. I love all of you. You know, one of the hardest things is to ask for help.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there's just so much to say. It's so rich, but people just really don't understand how much is really there for them.
Mm.
And how many lives I've seen wasted, you know, because they just weren't willing to go the extra mile. They just wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? They wouldn't give it up. They get out, and it's crazy. It's mind blowing to me. And so, you know, for all you guys sitting in there, you know, waiting on your date, right? Have a plan when you get out. Separate yourself from this. Be the role model for the rest of those inmates. Be the guy that leaves that prison that, you know, eventually they're going to tell your story and go, you're not going to believe what so-and-so did with their life,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and like, be that guy. It ain't fucking easy, but do that.
No, it takes a boatload of courage. And for everybody listening, that's exactly the message that I hope you took away from this time here with Eric. It takes courage to pull yourself off the streets. It takes courage to go to AA. It takes courage to lead a life of consistent failure so you can get to the top of the mountain. And it takes courage for you to continue to realize that you need that work every day on yourself, regardless of what house you're sitting in right now.
That's it, brother.
Eric, I appreciate you, brother. I love you so much. I can't thank you enough for this. And I know we've touched many, many millions of lives. Where can the people out there find you? How can they support you? And how can they continue to listen to your optimism?
Yeah, I'm on all social platforms. I'm most active on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time on social media. That's at Eric, ERIC _ Spofford, SPOFFORD. There's a bunch of fake accounts out there. Mine's the one with the blue check. That's me. These scammers, they never stop.
They never stop, right?
Yeah.
Every day it's a new guy in your inbox.
Yeah. Yo, but check me out on Instagram, man. You know, look me up, and prayers and God bless for everyone, you know, walking the path. I've been there for sure. And just one foot in front of the other.
One foot in front of the other. And Eric's living, walking, breathing proof. So I can't thank you enough for spending your time with us, brother. And I hope you continue to have a blessed day.
You too. God bless. Appreciate you.